It's a joy to be here today and to share with you some of our work. And I'm so happy that we read the scriptures ahead of time. You see, at house church, we do house church, and it's very informal to start with. We gather together, we all find a place in a circle to sit. So nobody's looking at the back of anyone's head. If someone comes in and they're feeling a little bit down, pretty soon the whole bunch of us knows we better pray for that person. Or someone's got something really joyous to share, they're bubbling over, the whole group is aware. And so I really like it. It's informal, as I said. And so we come in and we gather, and whoever's leading plays sometimes our own choice, but sometimes somebody's got their finger in the page in the chorus book, something they just want to sing. And I have to tell you, our chorus book is 295 songs, and it's old hymns, contemporary ones, and everything in between. Gospel, you name it. And so people are free to choose from any one of those. Usually, when I'm leading, I pray and say, Lord, just help people to choose things that will go with the message. And you know, miraculously, it happens. People choose things that are related to the subject that I'm preaching on. Well, the other thing I have to say is, you might think that my garb is a little bit casual, country, whatever. But, you know, we come to one of our house churches, Sheridan Lake, is on an old ranch house, in an old ranch house. It's an old log house. It was square. It's got one of those roofs that goes this way, and that way, you know. And there's no peaks and there's no valleys and all this stuff. And it's got an old summer kitchen on it, which if you stand in the doorway and roll a soup can, or let it go, it rolls down into the back door. And it's a very leaky, drafty old thing. And Pete, the rancher, can come into house church straight from pulling a calf, feeding cows, hauling hay, who knows what he's doing. And the last thing we want to be doing is being there in our Sunday best, and he comes in his ranch clothes, and he maybe doesn't even have time to change or wash his hands. And we welcome him to church. And so we do not want to be overdressed. That's the bottom line. So we wear very, very casual. Jeans is good, and running shoes. We've even got one fellow that sits there in bare feet all the time. That's okay too. Because we want to encourage people to love the Lord. And you can love the Lord in that garb as well as you can. And I know it's good for us to sometimes dress up. And to come to a church like this, I probably would dress up. But at this point in time, I don't own the dress. So there's not much hope for me. Anyway, I'd like to get us into this message. And I have to tell you that I don't call my talking preaching. I have had very little training in preaching. It did take 2 years at Woodworth College as education by distance, and I was there for 2 weeks each year for 2 years, and then I got a diploma in lay ministry, and hence the name designated lay minister with training is my full title. But I just tell it like it is on my heart. And I love this passage in 2 Corinthians because we have this treasure in clay pots. We are the clay pots. You and I, you are the clay pots as well. But I like to call myself a crack pot. And the reason I like to do that, is about 20 or plus years ago, my husband and I went to Mexico, and we stayed for 2 weeks with some missionary friends of ours who were originally from 100 Mile, and our church sent them out to New Tribes Mission. I don't know if you've heard of that, but New Tribes Mission, and they were dorm parents in Chihuahua. And so every every few weeks, actually every 6 weeks, the 12 or 13 teenagers they had living in their house went out to the mountains to stay with their parents for 10 days, and then they came back in to go to the Christian school in Chihuahua. So we went down when the dorm kids were gone, so that there was lots of room in the dorm for us. And they took us out to the mountains and took us to the little town of Caborachi. Now I don't know how, you can't even call it a town, because all I remember of Caborachi was this great, long, low building, which was a pottery shop. So I very carefully picked out one little pot. It was only about 4 inches high at that. And I did actually pick out another one that had been fired and painted. But I picked out this little pot too. And then I very carefully got them home on the plane, which meant I had to pack them in a bag and hold them for the whole entire flight, because otherwise they would have been smashed. So anyways, I put the little pot up on my mantle. I have a fireplace in I have a studio, piano studio, I'm a piano teacher, and I have 2 grand pianos side by side. And I also have a fireplace, which has never been lit, because it would make my pianos go out of tune very quickly. And so I put this little thing up on the mantle. And then one day out in my garden, I found some flowers that I thought, these aren't going to make it outside. So I picked them and I put a little bit of water in my pot, and the flowers ended up on the mantle. And a couple of hours later, I came back and looked, there's water everywhere. What's going on here? And I looked, and the pot had cracked in quite a few places. So I thought, okay, this is no good. And so I basically cleaned it up, put the flowers in something else that I knew would hold water, and I put it up on the shelf. Well, then my friends that we stayed with in Mexico came to stay at our house, and they live at our place if they can when they're visiting the 100-mile area. And she looked at my pot and she taped it all together again, because I guess she thought, I didn't know this till I got home. I said, oh, it's all taped together. I guess Debbie thought that the thing was going to fall apart. However, I have kept it all these years because it's my little cracked pot. And you know, we are cracked pots. We're leaky sometimes. The light shines through though, hopefully. The light of God's love shines through those cracks, whatever. Anyway, clay pots in Paul's day were many assorted shapes and sizes and colors, and they were usually humble, simple, made out of clay. They have to be humble and simple. They were storage containers, or they were used for cooking. And we did visit a young lady out along the river that had a square shack with a roof, a window with no window in it, just a hole, and a hole for a door, dirt floor, and a hammock in there, brightly colors. I don't know where they get their fabric, but they sew in many brightly colors. And outside, that's all she had in the house, was this hammock. And outside she had a fire pot, and she had this great huge pot on this fire for cooking. A clay pot. Some of these clay pots are fired through the kiln and some are not. It turns out that my little one was not. I've never tried putting water in the bigger one. I'm not going to go there because it may be just painted. It may not have been fired. I don't know. I don't want to find out. Some of those clay pots were even small, little, dainty. Yeah, and maybe for dried herbs or whatever. And you remember the big stone water pots, or they were actually, they said stone, but I believe they were clay pots, water jars outside at the wedding at Cana where Jesus turned the water into wine. All of the clay pots are shaped to serve. Now, I know you can't see it, but you can ask me afterwards. Every year our session gives our elders a thank you thing. And one year they gave us these little things called Shape to Serve. And there was actually a book that went with it. But there's a little pewter thing on here with a cross in the middle of it, and it's a little clay pot in pewter. Anyway, I thought, that would be really neat to have that as a pendant. I could hang it around my neck. And then people would ask me, what's that? I could say, that's my clay pot. It's shaped to serve. I'm the clay pot. so it's got what looks like a rip in the top of it. And she said to me when I went to get it, I went back to get it, she said, I am so sorry, she said. There's a hole in it now, I've ruined it. I said, oh no, you haven't. I have this vessel in a clay pot, and it's shaped to serve, and look, it's leaky too. And so she looked at me like, what kind of a nut are you? But I've had so much fun with my little clay pot. So I've got 2 little clay pots. Anyway, continuing with this, is this a metaphor? I hope you all understand what a metaphor is, and the Bible is full of metaphor. So, continuing with the metaphor, God is the potter, I am the clay, and each one of you is the clay. God is the potter, He's working each one of us. Each person we minister to is clay, and we say, after the songwriter, mold me and make me after your will, while I am waiting, yielded and still. In our house churches, we emphasize the priesthood of all believers. Now, this might not be a new concept to you folks, but it's a new concept to many of the people we minister to, because our mandate is to take the gospel of Jesus Christ, the treasure, to people who don't get church. So, you won't find our house church ministry in bigger centers. We have a ministry in 100 Mile House, but it's in Carefree Manor, assisted living. That's the only one in town we have. And I'm going to go back to the fact that we only have one church building. It's much smaller than this. It's probably from the wall there to the outside edge of your aisle there, wide, and about as long. And it's a little chapel up on the Timothy Lake Road. And that's the only building we own. We also call it a resource center. It has a library in it, and it used to house Dave Weber's office when he was ministering. Bruce Wilcox now ministers there, and he also is a lay minister, or a missionary, if you like, same as I am. And he conducts a Sunday morning service there at 10 a.m. But that service also, even though the people are sitting in chairs in rows, I tell you, we had pews like yours, probably very much like yours. And one Christmas Eve, people come to church on Christmas Eve. And one Christmas Eve, we had this mother and father come in and sit down, and their 3 perking big, muscle-building sons sit, crash, and the third one sat. And we've been having this discussion about getting rid of the pews, and there were some people that didn't want to. But after that night, we said, we have to, because fortunately, no one was hurt. But it emphasized the fact that these things are falling apart because the glue is coming undone and breaking, and someone could get hurt. So we changed to chairs. So in the chapel in Laplahash, people sit in rows in chairs, but that's the only place there are rows. And in our house churches, we sing for 20 to 30 minutes, depending on, we kind of watch the time a little bit. But people choose the songs. Then we have a message from the Word, and we have a prayer time. And people share requests, and people pray for either their requests or other people's requests. It's very informal. And then we always have a time of fellowship, and it depends on if anybody happened to bring some refreshments, a can of sandwiches, or cookies or something. But we always have coffee and tea, and a time of fellowship. And that time of fellowship can be also a very, very neat discussion time, because we get into it with whoever shared the message, and we share our thoughts, even if we didn't agree with it, sometimes we share that too. So, like I say, it's very informal. Bruce also ministers on Sunday at 2 o'clock at Carefree Manor in 100 Mile, as I said, and he ministers at 6:30 p.m. at Forest Grove at the Legion in Forest Grove. He is the chaplain to the Legion at Forest Grove, and so he asked them, could I rent the building and could I have a service there? Oh, sure. So we have a service at Forest Grove. On Tuesday nights, or actually afternoons now, Bruce drives up to McLeese Lake, which is halfway between Williams Lake and Quesnel, and he holds a service there at 2 p.m. We have a family, well, we have several families there, but one family has 9 children, and one family has 5 children, and so there are lots of young people. In fact, the McLeese Lake House Church at one time had 2 worship bands because all the young people play 1 or 2 or 3 instruments. And so there were too many kids to play 10 kids up here all the time, or somewhere around the front. So they divided into 2 worship bands, and that's almost unheard of, just having that much musical ability in one house church. But it was fun. On Wednesday evening, he goes to Sheridan Lake, and he ministers there at the house church I was telling you about, the old log farmhouse. And I go to that one on Wednesday night, but I go as a parishioner, or just a person in the pew, in the chair, whatever, unless Bruce is away. If Bruce is away, I take his place, and I do not do the McLeese Lake one because I'm teaching on Tuesdays, and I would have to take the whole day off to go up to McLeese Lake, so I don't do that. They take care of it up there. They've got quite a few people up there that actually can minister, and so they take Bruce's place up there. I minister in Williams Lake on Sunday mornings at 10 a.m., and on the first and third Sundays I'm at the Seniors Village, where it's an assisted living place, and there are still a couple of people there. We've had more than that, but several have passed away in the last couple of years. But we have 2 people there that used to be in the house church out at wherever they lived, and so they like us to come there, and so we come there. And then the other Sundays, 2 or 3 Sundays, we're in a private home doing the truly house church thing. And I meet irregularly. I say that because we meet for Bible study with my friend and I, and then we don't have a set date, but we set another time when we can get together. And as I said, filling for Bruce. We do quite a few funerals, Bruce and I. Bruce does the odd wedding. I'm not commissioned to do weddings, and that's okay by me. But we do lots of funerals because not only are we ministering a lot with older people, but we are both well known in the community. I've been there since I was 12 in the area, and I won't say how long that is. And Bruce was born there and was raised there, so we are both well known, and so I find it really quite hilarious in a way to minister a carefree manner amongst people whose children I babysat when I was a teenager. But they've seen me go from a pretty rugged, woolly teenager to a minister and ministering to their needs, and it's quite interesting. We also have a new couple at our church, in our Lacohash Fellowship, and actually he's a new elder now as well, and that's Don and Linda Lipset. Moved from Summerland to, I don't know if you've heard their names, but anyways, Dawn was an elder with the Summerland Church. He ministered there with Jim Statham, and now they're in our area, and Linda's a trained singer and a very gorgeous singer, and Dawn has done pastoral work, preaching, etc., so he fills in sometimes for us now too, and so the 2 of them can lead singing and play the piano and do all that stuff and lead worship, and we're very happy for that. And we call this ministry, Bruce's and mine, the South End. And now, I'll take us back to the North End, which we don't like to divide it, but for the sake of talking. And I'm sure you've heard John and Shannon speak here at this church before, so you know John Mayminga and Shannon Bell, and they live in Nasco, and they work as one position. They have a house church in Nasco, and some children ministries there, and they have a gathering, but I don't believe it's a house church. It's a talking circle or something along those lines in Quesnel with First Nations. They, this summer, they were evacuated for 40 days and 40 nights, and when they came back to their house, they had a flood. The pressure relief valve in their house had burst, and the whole main floor of their house is actually a main floor, and half of it is a loft. So it's not an A-frame, but it's, you know, it's a little bit different than what we would think of as a house anyway. And so the whole main floor was flooded, and now they are in the process of getting the whole floor replaced. They both found a fair amount of stress with that because, you know, they had a lot of stress over summer, and to come home to that wasn't nice. And the reason, John said, I usually turn my hot water tank off. In fact, I turn my pump off when we're gone for a length of time. But he said, the fire protection people wanted people to have sprinklers going, or the sprinklers that they could turn on when they came into the community after it was evacuated. And so, so John left the water on, and he actually left a couple of sprinklers on, and it's probably part of what saved their house. The fire came very close to Nasco. John was evacuated to Quesnel, and while he was there, he carried on as much ministry as he could. And Shannon stayed in the fire camp as a community liaison, and she did really, really important work. And it was very comforting and helpful to have a Christian person working in that position. So she worked there for the forestry and spent the summer there. And so both she and John are emotionally and physically exhausted. So they were here this weekend briefly for our presbytery meeting, which happened before Synod, and they came Friday night for a little while to the Synod meeting, but now they're taking a couple of weeks of study leave to rest and try and recoup their resources. So, we have this treasure. God has been kind enough to give us or to trust us with this work, and we are like clay jars in which this treasure is stored. The real power comes from God and not from us. We often suffer, but we are never crushed. Even when we don't know what to do, we never give up. In times of trouble, God is with us, and when we are knocked down, we get up again. And that is paraphrased from the contemporary, it's an actually contemporary English version. I like that. God has been kind enough to trust us with this work. Most of central BC, as you probably know, has had trauma because of the fire situation this summer. All of our congregations were either evacuated or on evacuation alert at one time or another. One of our elders, who lives at Cannon Lake and he's handicapped, was evacuated twice, both times in the middle of the night. But in the midst of this disaster, and continuing since, everyone has returned home, and if they have a home to go to, that is. We have heard many stories of ministry happening. Bruce and Jackie, Jackie's Bruce's wife, of course, they live at the 108. They were evacuated to Prince George. While they were in Prince George, Bruce has his parents there, so he had a place to stay, but Bruce visited the reception center every day, and he ministered to people there. They were housing people in, one of the places was the UNBC dormitories, and so all the people from the seniors village in Williams Lake were evacuated to the dorms in Prince George. So they had a good place, but it wasn't like having their own room, because they did have their own room, but there are 4 rooms in a pod and a bathroom in the middle. And so these people who had their own bathroom in their own room had to start figuring this out. And that was tricky. So Bruce decided to say, he asked the people at UNBC, could I have a service here? They said, sure. So Sunday morning, there's Bruce. He's having a cowboy-type church at UNBC Reception Center, and it was very well received. As I said, their home was on the 108. The night the fire got to the edge of the 108, it actually burned 2 homes, and it left 1 home in the middle. It was kind of on the outskirts of the 108. And the helicopter pilot the helicopter was flying over, and he radioed down to the ground, and he said, we've lost it. We can't save it. So there was a Christian, a pastor there from the Pentecostal church, well, it's the Hillside Community Church now. He was 20 years with the RCMP, but he was trained as a pastor, and so he now is pastoring again. He gathered 8 or 10 RCMP officers around him. He didn't check to see if you guys believe or not. He said, fellas, let's pray. They prayed, and the wind turned immediately and went back on itself. And they saved the 108. Now, they had a lot of fire trucks and sprinklers there, but, you know, it's like putting a garden hose on a bushfire, you know. It doesn't do much good. And so, God saved the 108. And there's much green space on 108. It would have burnt really, really furiously. As it was, before it got to the 108, it did burn. I think they lost 12 houses. A couple of Christians lost their houses in the whole thing. And they lost a lot of pasture land, a lot of fences, a lot of livestock was burned, and etc. So it was traumatic. And the fire did actually come to within 1 kilometer north of 100 Mile. There are lights and an intersection at the north end of town. It came right up to there, and they managed to stop it. So we are really praising God. We were evacuated. Well, we actually were on holidays. We left on the 3rd of July and we were in Lanigan, Saskatchewan, when we got several people texted me and said, do you know that your town is burning up? Oh, okay. So we stayed on holidays, but we shortened it. And then we went to my mom's place at Salmon Arm for 9 days, and I say we did meaningful farm labor. We were there because my brother has almost 4 acres and he's got lots of weeds. So we pulled weeds and cleaned up stuff for them. But I was so thankful to have something physical to do. I would have gone crazy in a reception center. We were allowed to go back home on the 23rd of July, and we found our house absolutely spotlessly clean. Some of the windows had not been closed. Things had not been unplugged like we were told to unplug. We had people staying in our house and they didn't know that. And it did not smell like smoke. Someone was watering gardens because our garden should not have survived. There was no rain. And it's flourishing. In fact, I've been working double time and a half this fall to take care of it all. It did so well. And so we are full of praise and thanksgiving. We lost our house to fire in 1981. We lost everything. And I said, well, if it goes, we can do this. But I had no idea until I got home and discovered that everything was kosher until I didn't know how much stress it was actually causing on me. I slept for about 2 days when I got home and found out the house was in good shape. But the story that is really striking is the Dewitts. Now the Dewitts live, I don't know if you know, do you know Highway 24 goes east-west from Highway 97, and then Watch Lake or Green Lake Road from 70 Mile goes east-west a few miles to the south. And in between there was all it ended up being in the Elephant Hill Fire. And that's actually where they finally got the Elephant Hill Fire, which started in Ashcroft and destroyed a whole lot of stuff in Cache Creek as well as Ashcroft and Loon Lake and a whole bunch of places. But they finally got it stopped. However, these people live between Highway 24 and Watch Lake Road on a Forest Service road at the west end of Sheridan Lake. They lost their house to fire last year on July 30th. They lost everything. Bernie, the dad, is a carpenter. He lost his work truck, his tool shed, and his house. So he basically lost his livelihood and his place to live. They have 11 children. They had 5 at home at the time, 5 of the youngest ones. This year, for the last, actually almost 5 months, the mother, Alice, has been down at Children's with one of their children who has an eating disorder, and so she was away from home anyway, and they got an evacuation alert first. The fire is heading there, then they got an order, and the fire was just obviously heading right for their place. And so basically, Bernie stuck his fingers on his oldest son's place. His oldest son is married and has 8 children. They were evacuated, of course. He stuck another finger on their place, and he stuck a third finger on another son's place, and he and his wife just had a new baby. And he said, God, please save these places. God did. The fire protection people had a lot to do with that, but God used them. They put sprinklers on absolutely every building. On Jason's place, on the Jewett's home place, and on Christopher's place. And on the Jewett's place, they even put a sprinkler on the outhouse and a sprinkler on the kids' playhouse. Every building had sprinklers on it. That fire burned all the way around it. It is a green oasis in the middle of blackened, well, Bernie calls it his black beauty. It's this green oasis in the middle of the burnt out forest. And I had pictures that I was trying to get developed and I didn't make it. And so basically, all you have to just imagine is all there are is these black sticks standing, and even the dirt is burnt. It's ash on the ground. It's just awful. But God saved their place. And this time, they lost some fencing, and they have 80 acres there, and 60 of them is burnt. Their house is saved. And so they have a lot to praise God for. Now, the downturn on it, or the bad side of it is Bernie's still trying to build their new house. They fixed a cabin up to live in, but I'm telling you, it's tiny. It's maybe a little bit bigger than the laneway houses that they have in Vancouver, I don't know. But it's tiny, and they fixed it up. They lived the last winter in it, and they're going to have to be this winter in it, because their new house is framed up, and the trusses are sitting on top of the top plate. They can't get them stood up because they couldn't go in, they couldn't go out, they couldn't use power tools, they couldn't use anything that might make a spark, no chainsaws. And so the house has been on hold for 2 months in summer because they couldn't do anything on it. And so I would ask for your prayers for that house to get finished. That they can at least get the trusses stood up and get the roof on before winter. They have the doors and windows are all stored there. They're ready to go, but they need to get it to lock up so that they can work in the wintertime on it. And I would like us to pray for the emotional trauma, because it takes a lot out of people. And the daughter that has an eating disorder is very much affected by the fact that she lost everything last year, and a year later it's burnt all around them, and they couldn't bring her home. She was able to come home, but they couldn't bring her home because she had to go through this whole burnt area to get there. And so, I don't know, I'm hoping they've got her home, but this emotional stuff, even us driving around and seeing all the blackened areas around us, it's traumatic. And I just would covet your prayers for our congregation, because as I said, every congregation, every family, everybody in our house churches, all the way, all the way up to the north, were affected. We breathed a lot of smoke for 2.5 months. And there are many people that have pneumonia now, and they think that's because of the smoke. So, my challenge has been to our people, how have you seen God working in the lives and situations of those around you? And how have you experienced God working in your own life? That's my 2 questions. And I would covet your prayers to just hold us up in that and be able to minister to people, to keep on being energized and encouraged to try and help meet people's needs.
Perverting our nation, forbidding us to pay taxes to the emperor, and saying that he himself is the Messiah, a king. Then Pilate asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" He answered, "You say so." Then Pilate said to the chief priests and the crowds, "I find no basis for an accusation against this man." But they were insistent and said, "He stirs up people by teaching throughout all Judea, from Galilee where he began, even to this place."